Rise, Meg.
The Force will be with you.
Hello my dear friends and welcome back to another video. So this is every single Star Wars movie ranked from best to worst. When I started my channel I did make a list similar to this one, but it didn't include Rogue One or Solo. Now I will say that there are slight adjustments in this video compared to the original, because while I love all 11 Star Wars movies in different ways and for different reasons, some of them move around my list every now and then, especially since I found that some movies grow on me over time. This is especially true if I find myself in a position where I haven't seen a movie in a long time and I end up rewatching it. So in preparation for this video, over the last 2 weeks I rewatched the entire Skywalker Saga for the millionth time to have fresh eyes for this list. I'll also say as a final point that this is how this video is going to work. As I go along I'm going to give you my reasons why each film is positioned where it is in the list. So here we go guys, without any more jibber jabber, let's just dive straight into it. My number one pick has to be Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. For me this film encompasses everything magical and amazing about Star Wars. It's often said that sequels to revolutionary movies are never as successful, but Empire broke all of those conventions in 1980 as the sequel to A New Hope. Interestingly enough though, Empire isn't the first Star Wars film I saw. When I was 6 years old, I watched Return of the Jedi at my grandparents' house and I fell in love with Star Wars instantly. I remember giggling when I saw Jabba the Hutt and the aliens at his palace, but around the same time I also saw Empire, and a bit later I watched The Phantom Menace. But I must say that Empire stuck in my mind as such an inspiring movie full of wonder and adventure. It really is the ultimate Star Wars experience, especially when compared to the other two movies of the original trilogy. Another reason I love this film is the fact that we're introduced to new worlds such as Hoth, Dagobah, Bespin. It's the movie that we're introduced to Yoda for the first time, and it's the film that really establishes the connection between Han and Leia. But most of all guys, cinematically, not only is it the movie where Luke has to face the biggest challenges, but for its time it went against all conventions because the bad guys win in the end. By the end of this movie, Luke has lost his hand after finding out that Vader is his father. Han is frozen in carbonite and you simply don't know what's going to happen next. And yet in spite of all of that, the movie's message is about hope and how through struggle you gain wisdom. The scenes with Yoda are so quotable because it's where George Lucas and Irvin Kershner were able to impart wisdom to the young audience about inner strength and the crudeness of matter compared to the power of the Force. And the whole experience of this movie is surprisingly uplifting. I could go on all day about the amazing nature of this film, but to put it simply guys, it is and always has been my number one pick for the best Star Wars movie. So moving on to pick number 2, we have Star Wars, later titled A New Hope. The original 1977 space opera is one of those movies I've seen 1,000 times that never gets old. While the visuals are certainly true to the technology available in the 70s, the movie is so special in its own way. As Alec Guinness used to put it, there's a certain innocence to it and it looks so clean.
What's the fascination of it to you, do you think?
I think a marvelous, healthy innocence.
Yes.
Great pace, wonderful to look at, full of guts, nothing unpleasant. I mean, people go bang bang and people fall over and are dead, but
Whenever I watch A New Hope, especially compared to the later films, I feel very relaxed and zen. Not many movies are able to do that for me, and I'm a film fanatic. I must say that the pacing is certainly slower than Empire and Return of the Jedi, but in a way that's why I love it so much. As Star Wars fans, it's nice to have a range of different ambiances across the saga. And to me, the original Star Wars movie encompasses the innocent nature of George Lucas's original vision for his franchise. Another reason this is my number 2 pick is the scenes between R2-D2 and 3PO. At times it really does feel as though their bond and the dialogue they have were both set up to make the viewer think that the movie is really about them and their journey instead of that of Luke. If you rewatch the movie with that perspective, trust me, I doubt you'll be able to unsee it. Next up at number 3 we have Revenge of the Sith. I grew up on the prequels, as did many Star Wars YouTubers in their 20s and 30s, and I've made entire videos explaining my reasons why I love this film so much. But to put it simply, it's a great prelude to the events of the original trilogy, and is such a pivotal movie for humanizing Vader just before he turned to evil. As fans, we learned the real reason why Vader turned to the dark side, and all in all the film answered a lot of other questions. How Palpatine became Emperor, how Luke and Leia were born, how Obi-Wan ended up on Tatooine, and Yoda on Dagobah, and so on and so forth. An outstanding movie to say the least. Next up we have The Phantom Menace. Again, this was a movie that shaped a big part of my early childhood, and it's unique for me because I saw it in London in English, and a week later when I visited my family in France, I saw it in French. So I guess you can say I got a diverse linguistic perspective of this film. But on a serious note, I think the bias of having seen it at such a young age, and it having given me such strong impressions, means that it will forever be a great movie in my eyes. Looking back though, some of the CGI may have aged somewhat poorly, especially with Naboo scenes, Jar Jar Binks, Watto and so on, but I still absolutely adore this one. Plus we got one of my favourite Jedi, Qui-Gon Jinn, as well as one of the best lightsaber duels in the saga. At number 5 we have Return of the Jedi. I was very tempted to put this one higher up the list, but it finds itself here instead. This movie, for all intents and purposes, was my introduction to Star Wars. And I think as a 6-year-old, I was mainly focusing on the visuals rather than the subtleties of the dialogue, pace and plot. Either way, having seen it almost twice a year for the last 20 odd years, it's a warm and satisfying end to the original trilogy. Luke becomes a Jedi, Anakin is redeemed and sacrifices his life for his son, and Princess Leia gets her hair braided by teddy bears, and all is fine and dandy. At number 6 we have a perhaps controversial pick, The Last Jedi. I've made no secret on my channel about my true thoughts of episode 8 and have gone in depth for reasons I do enjoy this movie. If you haven't heard my views, I urge you to watch my recent documentary, The Three Faces of Rey. At number 7 we have Attack of the Clones, a criminally underrated movie. Yes, the CGI was a bit over the top and the dialogue was not great, but the nuances of this film are superb. People often say that Revenge of the Sith is the best portrayal of Anakin starting his turn to the dark side, but I would argue that episode 2 is the movie where Vader's rage slowly builds up inside of Anakin. If you want evidence, I really encourage you to rewatch this scene where Anakin talks about his anger at the Tusken Raiders for killing his mother, or this one where his introverted frustration with Watto for selling Shmi is perfectly represented with subtle repressed monotone replies. I believe that this movie strikes the perfect balance between romance, family and opposition. All in all, even though there was a lot of space politics, I love it. Just like pretty much every other movie on this list, but like I say, you can't have all of the movies ranked at number 1. At number 8 we have The Force Awakens. I stated earlier that I gave my honest thoughts in my recent Three Faces of Rey documentary, and the same applies here for episode 7. But you know what, I did enjoy this movie, and it was the official return of Star Wars after a decade of no cinematic releases. Seeing Luke at the end gave me goosebumps, and the movie ended on a literal cliffhanger. I did on the other hand have grievances with this film, especially since it didn't take as many risks as episode 8, but it's a solid movie. The reason I place it below the others is because it wasn't my favourite sequel, and in my mind, all 6 Star Wars movies made by George Lucas take precedence. Moving on to number 9 we have Rogue One. Now this is somewhat controversial because a lot of people say it's their favourite movie, and while it is a decent lead up to A New Hope, the bulk of this film feels so unnecessary. Almost as if this film would have served better as a video game. A lot of people really love it, and more power to you, because I believe that we should all watch the films we love and we're entitled to whatever opinions we hold. But personally, it was only the final 15 minutes that were truly excellent. I guess in a sense it's why I'm not as excited for the Andor series as I am for the others, and it just wasn't for me. I just didn't have the connection to Jyn Erso or Cassian Andor as I do to many other characters across the franchise. So now moving on to our penultimate pick at number 10, I hate to say it guys, but this position is reserved for The Rise of Skywalker. In my documentary I stated that it undid a lot of what The Last Jedi built up, and it ruined the character of Palpatine. It was the prime example of why you should never fire a director halfway through production and rush the ending to a beloved franchise. But of course, I can easily rewatch this movie enjoyably, and the movie does have incredible moments, mainly with Kylo, but also Rey has her moments in the limelight as well. And finally, at number 11, we have Solo, A Star Wars Story. When the movie came out, I wasn't really enthusiastic. In fact, I waited an entire week before actually going to see it. This is exceedingly rare for me as a Star Wars fan, but I couldn't help but feel that the movie was unneeded. It's an example of how Disney and Lucasfilm don't leave much up to the imagination. Han Solo didn't need the backstory he was given. Part of the nature of the character, and all of the protagonists for that matter in the original trilogy, is that while they all did have a past, what mattered is the adventures they were going on now together. Don't get me wrong though, the movie was fun and the film did have its moments. I don't think anyone expected Darth Maul to return, but overall I'm afraid I'm going to have to say that this is my least favourite Star Wars movie. So there we go guys, that is all 11 Star Wars films. As I say, I love all of them in their own unique way. I'm not a hater, I'm just here to give you my honest thoughts and my personal list. All of this is extremely subjective, and with that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Tell me where you agree, where you disagree, and I'd love to hear your own personal rankings. I can't wait to read them, guys, and that wraps up today's video. Just before I go, guys, please may I ask you to hit like down below if you did enjoy it, and also be sure to hit subscribe, hit the little bell. I post videos every single day if you're new, and also if you're feeling generous, please consider contributing to the channel by going over to Patreon, where for just $2 or $10 a month you can get exclusive access to content that's not found here on YouTube. It really does help to support what I do so I can keep coming back here daily, giving you all of the news from a galaxy far, far away, and also giving you videos just like this one. I'm Star Wars Meg, wishing you all a phenomenal rest of the day, no matter where you dwell in the galaxy. Have a good one.